This build features content from a pack I got for free through the EA Creator Network. And today I am building on the National Park lot in Henford. It is part of a series of builds I did back in 2023 where I made spellcasters shells in this sort of style. And I decided I wanted to try and do a community lot in it because I haven't done that yet for that style. And so I decided on a park lot because I wanted to have a flower field, and I was really inspired to have some sort of flower field in my build. I was like, I could do a park and I could have sort of like a greenhouse area with some gardening spots inside, and I could have another building that becomes sort of a tea room. And that's what this build turned into. And if you had seen one of my community tab posts, this is delayed because I lost like save progress for it. For some reason, when I went to go save, it just got stuck in the saving loop. And sometimes that happens and it'll still save. Like if I press like escape or tab, I forgot what it is, and I try and close the game, it'll pop up and let me save again. But this time it did not let me do that. And I was just so like upset about it that I was like, I don't want to have to do what I already just did because I had already like mapped out the building for it, and I think I kept the terrain, so like the beginning of this was what was saved originally, which is good. It really didn't change, like it wasn't that difficult, the terrain anyway. You could see it as like 3 levels that I used the smooth tool to create pathways leading around. But anyway, I lost progress, and so I decided to just take a little break from the build and not look at it for a while. And that was for the best because I actually really liked the new layout for the buildings, and I wouldn't have really liked the original one as much. You'll see that right here, I'm kind of starting to fence off what I wasn't really sure what I wanted over here, and this turns into a really nice gazebo spot, which I don't think would have been the case if I didn't lose progress, and the gazebo ends up being my favorite part of the build. Also, in the intro, you had like seen all the finished builds in this. There is a part that I didn't show because I realized after I recorded all of that, and I uploaded to the gallery early, and then I realized that there's no bathroom in here because I guess national park lots don't require bathroom items, and so I completely overlooked that aspect. And I was like, well, if the national park doesn't need a bathroom, maybe it's fine without a bathroom. And then I was like, you know how annoying that would be if someone downloaded this for gameplay and their sim really has to go to the bathroom and there's no bathroom on the lot? They'd like, I'd be kind of annoyed if my sim was on this beautiful lot and like I would have to leave just so that my sim could use the bathroom or cheat their needs or something. And so I snuck in a tiny building behind what will be the tea room, which is like the right raised up area. There will be another pathway that slopes down that leads to a bathroom. And I was like, I don't want it to just be like some stinky outhouse for this one, which is like I love stinky outhouses, I do. But this one I was like, I don't want that for it. And so I made almost like a similar shape as the tea room area, but much smaller to fit 2 bathrooms in. So there will be bathrooms on this community lot. And it's a good thing I did that actually because I also added areas for like weddings and stuff. So I made sure that there was a wedding arch in because I was like, this is such like a pretty garden. I feel like a wedding arch would fit in perfectly here. And so I threw that in, and there's different, like I think there's like a buffet table and stuff. I don't think I put in like everything from the my wedding stories wedding like setup because that is really broken. um I didn't add like everything from there, but I did add a buffet table and a wedding arch, so you could probably plan a nice little wedding for your Sims. There's no seating area around the archway, so it would have to just be like a very small wedding. There is plenty of open space around the lot anyway if you want to move things around and add other sorts of activities because most of the lot is just flowers and different trees and stuff, so things can easily be moved around. Even the different terrain levels shouldn't really get in the way because I feel like when I use terrain most of the time, the higher levels are just towards the back of the lot and they're not really like in the way. And the entire front of the lot is flat landscape that just has trees and normally ponds. I do put two ponds in because it's so easy to just use up a lot of space, especially with how large this lot is. I found putting in some water in the front helped a lot in like not having to put down way more landscape objects than I really wanted to. And yeah, this is the gazebo that I was talking about before. I think it turned out really pretty. I end up putting just a long dining room table under there with different pink flowers and stuff. Like the whole theme of the spellcaster series that I was doing, it's like white walls and like pillars and windows and pops of like purple and pink. So I used a lot more pink in this build than I probably some of the other ones. I used a lot of pink flowers and decor around, and of course the floating purple orbs from Realm of Magic, which is like the key part of the landscape. Also, the giant pink mushrooms is also a key piece of like my spellcaster series. I did use a lot of lavender in this one though, because I thought it looked really pretty to fill in some of this empty space where the terrain kind of looks ugly. And so you can hide some of those pieces that don't look the best. So, like, if you're not super comfortable using terrain tools and stuff, I really think that just like hiding some of like the ugly parts with rocks or bushes or flowers really helps it to look a lot neater and put together than maybe it like usually is. And I do use tool mods, so it is a bit easier to hide some of this because I don't really like to see the terrain paint underneath when you raise up the terrain because you can't really get rid of it. It's just there. And that's why I always personally use tool mod to lower rocks and stuff. But if you're on like console and you can't use mods, you can easily just smooth the terrain if you're also bothered by seeing the dirt under it. It would just be a little bit difficult to like get the definition in the landscape that I get by using the rocks and lower them into the ground, but I feel like you can just achieve a similar look using either like fences or flowers scattered around. It doesn't really have to be rocks. This is probably just like the easiest and fastest for me is to mass lower rocks into the ground using tool. I also just like to have a different like texture in the landscape with like the lush greenery and the pops of color from the flowers and stuff. I feel like it's needed to have some sort of stone around to break it up just a little bit. And this main building that I am working on right now ends up being the greenhouse area. There was one thing I had to change inside of it because when I was playtesting it, I couldn't get my sim to actually enter the greenhouse because originally I thought it was like such a good idea. I was like, why has no one done this? Which maybe they have, but who knows. But I took like the monkey bars that have the flowers climbing up the sides, and I was using it as like an archway over the door, which apparently your Sims can't walk through there. And I wonder if it's like they can't walk under it. Because then now I'm thinking if I remove the door, could they have walked under the monkey bars? I feel like probably not. I just had to delete it, which was unfortunate because I really did like how it looked and I liked what it added to the greenhouse. But that's okay. I like had to change it, which is good that I realized it because sometimes I forget to play test, but when I was taking pictures, I was like, oh yeah, I want to make sure that my Sims can walk up these slopes because I do this often where I make these fake stairs with like the base game low fence pieces that your Sims can walk over and then using fences as railings. And usually they're fine and your Sims can easily walk up them because the terrain is smooth enough and not very steep. But I had seen that like at the base of some of them, especially by the gazebo, I was worried that the landscape was like maybe a bit choppy by the foundation, your Sims wouldn't be able to walk up it, but it's fine. The Sims can walk up because I'm pretty sure that like if your foundation is just like raised up one, your Sims can easily step on it. So that's exactly what was happening with that. So the build should really be fine. Your Sims should be able to walk around all the different areas of like each of the buildings and it not be a problem. Because like even the back stairs over there, it looked a bit steep, but it's actually okay. And you can tell if the terrain is too steep for your Sims to walk up if you go to like the grid and the terrain. I don't really remember what it looks like, but there's ways of seeing if it's okay without actually having to get a sim on the lot because this lot is the national park lot and you can't just like make it a residential. I've learned that the hard way like many times that because I wanted my sim to live here before. And when I was doing my 100 baby challenge for the first time, I did make my sim live here and it caused so many issues and bugs in my game that it's just like it doesn't really work. And that was years ago though. I don't know if I've tried it since. I think I was just like played it safe and I'm like, I'm not going to like mess around with this and try and make it a residential. But because it was just stuck at the national park like lot type, I wasn't likely to play test until the very end, which is why I didn't really pick up on some things until then. But now I'm just like really getting started on the landscaping of the build because so far I just have the terrain mapped out. I put the rocks in to really just get a feel for how the base of the build is going to look and I filled in the gaps on the like rocks where it looked a little bit ugly. But for like this sort of style, I always pick like very lush greenery. This is either from Snowy Escape or Cottage Living. I don't actually remember, but I use that as the like foliage on the roofing. And these are Cottage Living, the purple bushes I thought would look nice with the other like very like bushy green pieces that I'm adding around to make it kind of look like it climbs up over the roof and onto the other roof. I feel like this is a style where I could just be completely on autopilot without feeling like super repetitive for myself. And it's like, yeah, these builds all have a very like similar look to each other, but it's pretty different from my usual go-to building style. Like if I'm just going to build and I don't really know what I'm gonna build, it's gonna be something that's very like dark and wooden and a little bit worn down, where this is like a very different sort of style to that. And I get to appreciate some of the windows in the game that I really love, but don't really get to use very much, like the Realm of Magic windows that I don't really like the brown swatches because they're very orange. So I don't get to use them very often but I get to use this in this one, and as well as, like, those big round windows at the top, which I think they might be from, like, the wedding pack. I don't remember because I don't really use the windows from the pack either because the swatches are pretty limited and there's nothing that usually works for my style, but it looks really nice in this one with all of the very, like, light colors and pairing it with, like, the pale pinks and stuff. I just really like how it looks visually. It's also nice revisiting this because I know what kind of landscape items to use, and I can do it very quickly, which I think surprised me when I edited this video, and it wasn't like 40 minutes, which I thought it was going to be because I was like, I feel like this build is pretty large. It's a pretty big lot, and the fact that it was okay and it was like actually pretty short, I was surprised at that. But I think it is just because I really was just eye dropping the same sorts of items over and over again, and I already knew what looked good in this style, so I can easily just grab the like landscape pieces that I know would look nice. The more difficult part for me was like picking out the flower arrangements because usually I don't think I was putting a lot of flowers in this build because for the most part it was a lot of lush greenery and I didn't have too many pops of color outside of the mushrooms and the glowing Realm of Magic orbs, and so I didn't know what kind of flowers I was going to include. But I figured just like pale pink flowers would look nice. I knew that I wanted to have different heights in the flowers, so I have some that are a little bit taller mixed in with like I see them as like default flowers in the game. I think they're just base game ones that are a little bit lower into the ground. Some areas I put in like that green grass into some of the flower beds. Yeah, like right there. I thought it just added a little bit more to the space and brought in that like lush green like that I was going for, especially with the roofing. So I thought it helped to blend the two together. And for some reason this pathway gave me so much trouble because it like every time I did it, it looked like a little like Martian or a Shrek because it's like the two like antennas or ears leading to the staircases. And I couldn't unsee it. And it was just like, it was so much and so obvious that I just like, I had to take a break from the build too. So I was like, I just see Shrek in my landscaping right now. And it still is, but it was a lot worse when I was using like dirt pathways because I was like, yeah, I want dirt pathways in this, and it made it like way too obvious and stood out so much. And so this was my change in it was just using the cobblestone path with like a little bit of opacity so that it's not like really, really harsh in the grass line, but it still kind of looks like that to me even now as I'm looking at it. I did kind of just realize that I probably could have like fixed this Shrek landscape situation if I had made more of like a windy path that sort of looks like a snake where I had the two staircases and then instead of having the big oval in the middle, I could have just had a winding path and having little pieces of flowers here and there instead of like a big oval field. But the thing was that like I was so set on the idea of having big patches of flowers that that didn't even really cross my mind at the time when I was designing this landscape. But it's okay. I think it like it looks good from this angle where I don't see the Shrek face. And for the most part, to fill in all this empty space, I just like grab the same flowers and I put them in just like patches here and there to just fill in all the areas. Kind of like what I do with ponds, because I do have two ponds that helped to like fill in how much lawn space there is in this lot. Because I think, is it a 50 by 40 lot, this one? It is pretty large. And so I was like, the builds look so tiny in comparison, especially if you're doing like a bird's eye view of it. You just see how much lot space there is, and just to like make it a bit easier on myself, I dropped all of these different flowers, and I really liked using the flowers from Romantic Garden, which I've never used before because to me they've always looked a little bit weird, but I really liked how they looked mixed in with all the other flowers that I had picked out. They stand out a lot, which I think is why I don't usually like them, but in this it like stands out in a good way because all the other flowers kind of blend together. They're very soft, but those ones give something to break that up just a little bit. And now we're on the inside of the build and you could see that I thought I was onto something here with the beautiful monkey bars at the entrance, but I had to delete it because my sim could not walk under it at all. I did try other sorts of things to replace the monkey bars with, but I didn't really like any of them. So I just put another like wedding arch over there instead because nothing else fit as perfectly as those monkey bars had fit in that little space. Cause like I was trying out like the pergolas, but they were all a little bit too big and then you size them down and then they're too small, so I couldn't like find anything that would actually fit that space. But for the greenhouse itself, I was originally going to plant, like manually plant stuff in these planters, but I ended up just going with purple flowers that I used outside and bushes and stuff because I wanted to look like very full and everything is blooming. And so I just went with that instead. But you could always just remove it and put your own stuff in these planters. But I really like, I think it's the Romantic Garden stone bench as well as sort of like a feature piece in the center of the greenhouse. And then I had seen these base game winning arches, and I really liked the pink flowers. And I decided to frame the entire gazebo with them because I thought it gave it a really beautiful look when you go in of just like the pink flowers climbing up the sides of the gazebo and having a very long rustic table with the pink runner on it and having different pink plants, maybe some candles. I don't remember if I put candles in here, but I did put string lights and I changed the string lights to purple. But I didn't see how it actually looks at night, but I really hope that it gives a nice, pretty, like, purple glow in the gazebo at night. I wanted all of the spots around this lot to feel like it could be a really pretty picnic, and so there's a bunch of different areas that I think would be really pretty for that. So, like, inside the greenhouse, like, I put a picnic basket on top of a table with, like, the idea that people could sit on the stone bench and eat in there, and the gazebo has the very long table for more people, and I added a picnic table down towards the back when you leave the gazebo and walk down the stairs. There's gonna be a picnic table over there that also has a cauldron near it, because I remember I was like, "This is supposed to be, like, part of my spellcaster series," and then I threw in a purple cauldron down there as well, and this is the tea room, which I was really excited to do, and I was gonna do a counter, but I felt like it looked too commercial, and I didn't like just the theme that it was giving, so I decided to just use a, like, cloth table, or I guess like a table with a white tablecloth over it, and just make my own sort of like tea counter instead. You'll see that it looks a lot better this way, and I was able to pick out my own clutter for this table instead of just having that large counter, which, like, I guess it would be nicer for gameplay to have a place to, like, come up and grab drinks, but I really do prefer this one instead. And there is still a place that you could get drinks. There is the, like, tea set off on the table, and I put a buffet table outside as well, so there is the possibility of having food there too and not just tea. And I really love finding an item while I'm, like, almost done with a build that I really like that trellis with the pink roses climbing up. When I had seen it and I put it in here, I was like, "This is gonna look great all around the entire build." And I did use some of the new kitchen clutter kit for the buffet table because I thought it would look really nice with the jar of cookies, which you can also, they're functional for gameplay, so you can walk up and you can grab a cookie from the cookie jar. I forgot that they had added that into the game, as well as the new cutting board that I placed the jam and berries and cream up there to give it, like, have different heights in the buffet table. And I think it came out really nice. When I was building this, I really wanted to make a, like, community lot that I would love to visit in real life, but also that I would love to see my Sims visit. And I think that this tea room is, like, perfect for that. And I just put some candles around to create a soft glow. I just went back in to take pictures of some of the interior because I forgot to actually take pictures of this, and when I took the pictures, I was like, "Wow, this is, like, the perfect glow," and I don't even think I really changed the candle colors at all. Because usually I go and I change the color of the lights, but that's just the default one unless I missed it and I'm lying. I wasn't lying, I went back to make sure. Because sometimes when I'm, like, doing voiceovers, I won't be, like, looking that intently, I could easily miss something, but the last part of the build that I do is I just add in this wedding arch. I thought this one looked really nice and fit in really well, and I frame it with some more of the pink flowers and this magical glowing orbs from Realm of Magic, which I sized down to make them look very tiny. But yeah, that's a whole build. You'll be able to see the bathroom off in the back. I also have a floor plan of it. There it is. So your Sims will be able to use the bathroom on this lot. And as always, thank you for watching if you made it all the way through, and I hope you enjoy the screenshots, and my gallery ID is in the description if you would like to download this build. I should have another build up next week. I'm not sure which one yet because I started like 5 different builds this last week. But yeah, I'll see you then. Bye.